It happened near the freezer aisle. One moment I was reaching for a bag of frozen peas. The next, the floor was rushing up to meet me. I remember someone shouting, ma'am, can you hear me?" Then nothing, not even the sound of my own breath. When I came to, the lights above me weren't from the supermarket. They were colder, cleaner, humming faintly. Hospital lights. A nurse with soft eyes leaned over and smiled. "You're okay now, Marla. You're at Mercy General. We ran some tests. You had a cardiac episode, but you're stable." I blinked slowly. Everything felt distant, like I was moving underwater. She adjusted the IV tape to my hand. "We tried calling your emergency contact, your son Grayson. He didn't answer, but we left messages. I tried to speak, but my throat felt like sandpaper." She offered a sip of water, then hesitated. "I'm so sorry to bring this up now, but..." She held up my phone. "This was posted a few hours ago. I thought you should see this." It was a picture. Talia, my daughter-in-law, sitting at a picnic table by the lake, sunglasses perched perfectly in her highlighted hair. Grayson stood behind her, grill tongs in one hand, bottle of beer in the other. My grandkids were nowhere in sight. The caption read, "Kid-free day without the drama," and just beneath it, my name. Tagged. As if I were part of some joke. As if collapsing in a supermarket wasn't real. As if my body wired to machines was just a punchline. The nurse placed the phone face down on the tray table. "If you need anything, just press the button." I didn't move. My chest wasn't hurting anymore, but something deeper was. The phone buzzed once, then again. I didn't reach for it. I just stared at the beige ceiling tiles, counting the slow pulse of the IV. When the lights dimmed for the evening rounds, I closed my eyes and let the room go quiet around me. The first night passed in a haze of murmurs and footfalls. Nurses changing shifts, machines humming like lullabies. I never asked for. I stayed quiet. Too tired to speak. Too numb to hope. On the second day, a volunteer came by with a tray of magazines and smiled gently when I said no, thank you. No visitors came. No calls were transferred to my room. No one asked for Marla Vexley. On the third morning, I reached for my phone. The charger cable dangled from the wall like a misplaced promise. A nurse had plugged it in for me overnight. When the screen lit up, I saw them 52 missed calls. All from one name. Grayson. I stared at the log. The first call came in late last night. Then a burst of calls in the early morning hours. Not one from the day I collapsed. Not one from the day after. Not even when the doctors first reached out. There was only one message. "We need you. Answer immediately." No, "Are you okay?" No, "I'm sorry." Just a command. I locked the screen. My hand trembled slightly, not from weakness, but from restraint. I could have called him. I could have asked why he didn't show up, why he let his wife turn my health into a punchline, but I didn't. Instead, I opened my contacts. The list was short, mostly old friends who had either moved past or politely drifted away. But one name still lingered, buried under a layer of dust I hadn't dared to brush off in years. Calton Vexley, my husband's brother. We hadn't spoken since my husband's funeral. That was 12 years ago. But I remembered how he looked across the cemetery that day, hands in his coat pockets, eyes sharp even behind grief. He was the only one who didn't ask for anything. The only one who didn't say, "If you ever need help," as if I were a problem waiting to be solved. I tapped his number. He answered on the second ring. No hesitation, no confusion. Just his voice, steady as ever. "Where are you, Mercy General?" I said. "I'm on my way." I lowered the phone. For the first time since I fell, I exhaled. Calton showed up just after lunch, carrying a plain notepad and wearing that same old canvas jacket I remembered from a decade ago. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't offer condolences or force concern into polite phrases. He just pulled the chair beside my bed, opened his notebook, and said, Let's look at what they've tied to your name. He brought his own pen. We started with the basics. Bank accounts, automatic payments, credit alerts. I handed him my phone. He worked quietly, methodically, tapping through each app and login with the kind of patience most people reserve for jigsaw puzzles or emergency rooms. When I couldn't remember a password, he waited. When I got tired, he paused. 2 credit cards, he said finally. One you use, the other maxed out 3 months ago. I frowned. I only carry one. He didn't comment, just wrote it down. My stomach turned. He moved on. Second car insurance policy? Under your name. Honda Accord. I drive a Ford, I said. I know, he replied. He kept going. A home internet account in another city. A utilities bill with my name as a guarantor. An old cell phone plan I'd forgotten now stacked with 4 active lines. They'd built a life around me. Through me. Every financial gap plugged with my signature. Every mistake softened by my credit. They asked. I said yes. Then they stopped asking. I kept saying yes. And they let me sleep on a mattress that sagged in the middle under blankets I bought secondhand while they planned vacations and posted brunch photos I was never tagged in. Calton closed the notebook and leaned back. You've been very generous, he said evenly. I nodded, though the word felt wrong. This wasn't generosity. It was servitude in a prettier coat. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope, something he said I'd need for the next part. Then he asked me one question. Are you ready to shut it all down? It was nearly evening when the nurse knocked gently and stepped halfway into the room. Mrs. Vexley, she said, careful with her tone. There was an incident earlier today. I put down the cup of cold broth I hadn't touched. She hesitated. A woman came in, said she was your medical proxy. She insisted on speaking to your doctor and accessing your chart. I raised an eyebrow. My proxy? Yes. But when we checked the file, your emergency contact is listed as Mr. Calton Vexley, correct? I nodded slowly. She refused to leave until security was called. They walked her out. Said her name was Talia. Of course it was. I thanked the nurse. She left with a soft apology in her eyes, the kind of look reserved for people who just learned something ugly about the ones they love. That night, Calton returned with a paper bag of herbal tea and a manila envelope. He handed me the tea without a word, then placed the envelope on my tray. They're not just poking around, he said. They've started paperwork. I opened the flap and pulled out a series of printed emails. Sender, Grayson, Vexley recipient, Kellard and Knox family law subject lines like exploring guardianship options and mental instability after cardiac trauma glared up at me in bold. They weren't worried about me. They were positioning me, framing me as unstable, weak, a financial asset locked behind a fragile pulse. I flipped to the last page. A list of warning signs they had provided: erratic behavior, refusal to engage, signs of cognitive decline. My silence, my absence, my boundaries twisted into proof. They're filing for temporary conservatorship, Calton said. It gives them control of your finances, property, and medical care if a judge signs off. I stared at the page, then folded it neatly and slid it back into the envelope. Noted, I said. Calton nodded once. Then I reached for my phone, not to call them, but to call the lawyer Calton had already lined up. We had work to do. The lawyer's name was Marion Keene. She came to the hospital after hours, dressed plainly, carrying a briefcase filled with sharp edges and quiet assurance. Calton had worked with her before years ago after his own divorce. She doesn't talk much, he'd said, but she finishes what others only threaten. We got to work right away. By morning, every shared account with my name on it was frozen. Utility bills, co-signed loans, dormant subscriptions halted. My card information was removed from every payment method tied to Grayson or Talia. The phone plans, the car insurance, even that second internet account. Gone. Marion helped me revoke all emergency contact permissions. From that moment on, no one could speak on my behalf but me and Calton, legally appointed by notarized forms before sunset. Then we turned to the real matter, the cottage. After Henry passed, I never bothered updating the title. The house stayed under the joint estate. Talia once joked that we should just let it roll to Grayson when the time comes. She'd laughed like it was already hers. But Henry had left a clause, small, specific, ironclad. In the event of my incapacitation, the property was to remain in my sole name, protected from sale or transfer, unless I authorized it personally. Marion filed the paperwork. By dusk, the deed had been transferred, reaffirmed, and resecured in my trust. The voicemail came later that evening. Talia's voice was sharp, high-pitched, forced. "You're tearing the family apart, Marla. This isn't how we handle things. You're overreacting. Call us. Fix this before it's too late." I listened to the message once, then deleted it. They called it a family. But families don't drain you dry and label your silence as defiance. Families don't try to steal your breath and your signature in the same week. There was nothing left to fix. Nothing left to tear. They had already broken it all. I closed my eyes and let the quiet settle around me. For the first time, it didn't feel like giving up. It felt like finally standing still. And then the notifications started. The first post came the morning after we finalized the deed transfer. Talia had always been theatrical, but even I was surprised by the staging. A wide shot of their living room, bare walls, furniture, gone curtains stripped. She stood in the center holding a lamp like it had been wrestled from her hands. The caption read, "They took everything, but we forgive her. She's still our mother. Forgive me," as if I were the thief, as if my silence was cruelty and not survival. The comments came fast. People I didn't know pouring sympathy into the thread like it was holy water. "Stay strong. Family is complicated. You're so brave for forgiving her." I didn't respond. I didn't even open the app. Calton showed it to me 2 days later, eyes sharp with something between fury and amusement. "She's trying to control the story now," he said. I nodded, but said nothing. Then someone reposted the old tag Talia's lakeside photo from the day I collapsed. The caption she'd used with such confidence, "Kid-free day without the drama." They'd tagged me while I was unconscious in the ICU. It exploded. The tone of the comments shifted overnight. Screenshots began circulating. One account posted a side-by-side the empty living room and the smug picnic photo. Another pointed out the matching earrings Talia wore in both posts. People started digging into Grayson's job, into Talia's brand sponsors, into the lies wrapped in filtered photos. A wellness company that had partnered with Talia issued a statement and unfollowed her. 2 more dropped her before the weekend. Grayson was placed on administrative leave pending review of personal conduct concerns. The internet didn't just turn it sharpened. Still, I didn't speak. I didn't make a video. I didn't correct them. I just watched the narrative unravel from the corner of my hospital bed where no one had visited, no one had called, and no one had once asked how I was healing. The fallout was just beginning. And they hadn't realized yet I wasn't the one who started it, but I would be the one who finished it. The envelope came from the county clerk's office, addressed in stiff block letters. It wasn't unexpected, just sooner than I thought. I opened it with steady hands. Inside was a notarized declaration, drafted by Grayson, filed the week after the conservatorship attempt failed. The wording was clinical, but unmistakable. Effective immediately, I, Grayson Vexley, am withdrawing all familial responsibility toward Marla Vexley, including but not limited to medical, financial, and personal support, until such time as reconciliation is achieved and acknowledged by all parties. At the bottom, his signature, followed by the names of 2 witnesses. It wasn't a will. It was a rejection, with legal weight behind it. A formal abandonment. I handed it to Calton. He read it once and let out a low, dry laugh. "He's still trying to punish you," he said, "still clinging to the idea that you are the one who walked away." We didn't waste time. Marion filed a response that same afternoon. A legal waiver of any claim to contact care or shared responsibility. A permanent no-contact declaration. Full removal of their names from every emergency financial and legal record tied to me. I wouldn't ask for help. I wouldn't allow interference. And I wouldn't give them another chance to twist my silence into weakness. But they weren't finished. A few days later, Calton slid his phone across the tray table. "You'll want to see this." It was Talia again. She'd posted a photo from decades ago, me in my 20s, standing barefoot on the porch of my first apartment, holding baby Grayson in my arms. I remembered that moment. Henry had taken the picture. We had almost nothing, and still thought we had everything. Talia's caption read, "We're keeping a room ready. Family is forever." The comments were worse than the photo. People mistook performance for love. Assumed proximity equaled care. They didn't miss me. They missed the version of me who said yes, who kept the lights on, but that woman was gone, and no room they kept ready would ever house her again. We knew it was coming. Marion had warned me they'd likely try again, something louder, something desperate. And sure enough, just over a week later, we received notice Grayson and Talia were pursuing emergency conservatorship for the second time. They claimed I was unstable, erratic, a financial risk to myself and others. They cited emotional deterioration following a health event and claimed I had a pattern of isolation. What they didn't know was that Marion had already filed everything they hoped I couldn't produce. A certified letter from my cardiologist, mentally and physically stable. My income record steady and consistent from my part-time position at the Historical Society. A statement from my employer confirming I'd voluntarily taken medical leave and was scheduled to return. Documentation showing every financial shift was made legally transparently and in my sole name. The case never even reached a judge. It was dismissed by the court clerk. 2 days later, their attorney withdrew entirely, but they didn't stop. When legal control slipped through their fingers, they pivoted. To sympathy, to spin, to story. Paige, Grayson's cousin in Talia's echo chamber, posted a blurry photo of me outside the hospital. I hadn't even seen her that day. The caption read, "She's hurting. We're just trying to reach her." Then came the vague posts from Talia. Mental illness doesn't always look like what you expect. Some wounds are invisible. They never said my name. They didn't have to. Old acquaintances started messaging. One woman from my church group asked if I needed prayer. Another sent a gift card with a note that read, "Thinking of you during this difficult transition." I didn't reply. They couldn't control my money, couldn't take my home, couldn't touch my medical care. So now they were reshaping me into a fragile old woman, into a villain turned victim, into a cautionary tale they could cry through one filtered frame at a time. Marion called it deflection. Calton called it delusion. I called it expected, because I knew what was coming next. They weren't done performing. Paige was the next to crack. She uploaded a video late at night, soft lighting, grainy enough to seem raw makeup, just smeared enough to look real. Her voice wavered like a rehearsed tremble. "We just want peace. She's pushing us away. We've tried everything. But sometimes people build walls you just can't climb." She didn't say my name, but the message was unmistakable. And this time, the internet wasn't buying it. Within hours, someone reposted her video next to a screenshot of Talia's now infamous kid-free day without the drama post. Another added the caption from their eviction photo, "They took everything, but we forgive her." Side by side, it looked exactly like what it was: performance. Not grief, not love, not loss, just strategy. Then came the neighbors. A woman from across the street at my old house commented. She was the only one who shoveled the walk. The rest of them left her mailbox buried for days. An old library volunteer posted, "She once donated her coat to a student who showed up shivering. That woman doesn't abandon anyone." The comments turned. I didn't have to say a word. Anonymous accounts started calling out the inconsistencies. The timelines didn't match. The footage was staged. The silence they accused me of deserved. I stayed quiet. Until one morning, Calton handed me his phone and said, "If you're going to say anything, say it now." I opened my photo album, scrolled past all the old ones, found the one we'd taken years ago, me and Henry, sitting on the front porch of the cottage, 2 mugs of tea on the table between us, the sun slipping low behind the trees. I posted it with one line. Sometimes silence is survival. No hashtags, no comments, no explanation. Then I set the phone aside and poured another cup. The kind of peace they wouldn't recognize even if it hit them in the chest. And just as I sipped it, the mail arrived, another envelope I hadn't been expecting. I donated the phone the next day. The one with the voicemails, the threads, the tags. All of it. Gone. A teenager at the donation bin said, "You sure you don't want to wipe it first?" I just smiled and said I already did. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of space I didn't know I needed. I started going back to the library. Not for work, just for something slower. Calton helped me set up a reading club for seniors, nothing formal. Just folding chairs, large print copies, and coffee in the corner. The kind that's strong and a little bitter like most of us. We meet every other Thursday. Sometimes we don't even open the books. Sometimes someone just needs to talk. At home, the cottage has settled around me like it remembers who built it. There are still days when I sit on the porch with Calton, 2 mugs between us, watching the sky fall into itself. We don't talk much. We don't have to. The neighbor's daughter, Mina, brings soup every Tuesday. Chicken when I'm feeling tired. Lentil when she wants to impress me. I listed her as my new emergency contact last week. She cried when I told her, said no one had ever trusted her like that. I told her that trust doesn't come from blood, it comes from showing up. The hospital called once. Just once. A woman from staff development asked if they could use my case for training. Said it helped the team understand what abandonment looks like, what quiet can mean. I told her yes, of course, because sometimes healing isn't loud. Sometimes it doesn't come with closure or confrontation. Sometimes it just looks like a warm cottage, a steady friend, and a sunset that doesn't ask for anything back. That night, I made coffee for 2 and lit a candle I'd been saving. I sat with it, watching the wax pool slow and gold. And I thought, for the first time in years, this piece is mine.